budget hearing. Motion is passed. The next item on the agenda is item B under new business, referencing the City Hall change orders. Paul?
I really do not have anything to add to that unless you have a question on the stuff that was sent out in the packet regarding the change orders. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have on that information that was sent.
Council?
I had just a couple of questions.
Certainly.
I see that the change orders are number 3, 4, and 5. Was there a change order 1 and 2?
Number 2 is actually, did you not receive number 2? It was, or I'm sorry, that's contract number 2. I apologize. Let's see, that's number 5, number 4. Maybe. Michael, you might have to help us out with this. I apologize, Brandon. I was looking at the contract number.
I don't recall exactly which number correlates to what, but the gist of them was one was a credit back to you to adjust the contract amount to align with where the bids came in. I don't recall exactly what the amount was, but it adjusted it down.
But that was number 4.
Well, there was
for
another
the signage.
There was another credit. Either one or change order number 1 is a credit back to the city to reduce the amount of the contract down to where the actual bids came in. Change order number 2 added some data that was the specifications for the project allowed for a certain number of data, voice, cabling ports in each office in each area. And once we got that all laid out, we had the staff walk through, make sure that it was sufficient. There were a handful more that were added, and there was also one window on an internal office that was added on that second change order.
Have we received those change orders?
You have?
Have they been approved?
Yes?
I don't think I have number 2, Michael. I have number 3, 4, and 5 in the email.
Oh, yeah, they weren't in that email.
Okay.
They were addressed some time ago, and they were signed. We can produce copies of them that show them being signed. It would not have been with the current council and mayor administration, if you will.
So they weren't presented to the council ever. And so you're saying number 1 made some changes to the overall bid based on the bids that came in. And
yes.
Number 2 was a change increasing the cost a little bit for those.
That's correct. Boards. Yes.
I don't know that I've seen a final number. What does the City Hall project come in at so far? Because I've not seen change order number 1 that changed the number. So
The totals on 3, 4, and 5 would be accurate and reflect where it is. What's the?
Do you remember what the initial credit was?
That's when it took it down to the 541. Is that what you're indicating?
Yes.
When it took it from the 543 to the 541.
That's correct.
Back probably in November or something.
Yeah,
December.
November, December. Yeah.
And this is a weird question, I guess. We now have 3 change orders before us that you're wanting to present to the council and the mayor to look at and approve. Why didn't we receive the same thing with the first 2 change orders?
Well, our main contact was not the council. The contract specified who those go to, and then after that, we're happy to answer questions, but we don't necessarily bring them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's before us now. There's 3 of them before us now.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so I guess I'm wondering what's changed. Why is there 3 of them before us now, but the first 2 didn't need to go before us?
That's what I'm saying. That's not that wouldn't be me. It's
so Polly requested.
They're given to. I don't remember if our contact is designated as was the mayor or was Polly. Whatever is spelled out of the contract, those go to that person.
And it's their choice to bring it before the council. And you're
Well,
saying that's what's happening now?
Beyond that, I just don't know exactly how it would work within your organization. All the organizations deal with it.
And I'm not being coy here. I'm trying to ask a simple question. So who requested it to go before the council?
Well, I requested the change orders so that we could make sure that we knew where we were at and bring those to the council for your information. So yes, I emailed Michael and said, please send those my way so that I can get them to the council.
Okay, so you requested that we talk about it today.
Well, yes, as a follow-up, I know it was an email that had come and said, has the council seen the change orders? And so that's why I had emailed Michael and asked for them.
Okay, so maybe my question should be directed to you then. Why didn't we receive the first 2 change orders?
Well, if the first one Michael is speaking about is when the amount was changed, then I think that was the one that was when the contract was actually signed, was when that first one was done. And that one was done kind of out here when we got the contract, when we were heading over, when that picture was taken that day. And we were heading over to the city hall for the meeting.
Okay, so that's just the total contract price.
It would have been shortly thereafter, after all the bids were in, and shortly after we presented final numbers that evening. I didn't come prepared to discuss it at different dates.
And it does seem to me that in the contract that the mayor or myself are the ones that are approved to do the signing for the documents. And so I'm speculating that maybe change order number 2 then was signed by the mayor, which is the same thing that has on the 3 change orders that are before you.
So it was signed by
mayor to
the mayor,
sign.
not before the council, but now you want these other 3 to go before the council, so just have the mayor sign for it?
No, I think these are just for your information because you
Okay.
had asked last time regarding the change orders so that you could see what the change orders were with the content
Okay.
of what was in them so that you would feel comfortable knowing if you were asked where are we at with the total city hall project, then the council would know. But I don't think according to the contract that it had to come before the council
Okay.
for a signature. I think the contract was that the mayor could sign
The mayor would sign for it?
for the documents, correct.
Okay, and Dave Overacre signed for the first 2?
I will definitely go back and confirm that.
We can provide that.
Okay, I guess the reason I'm frustrated is I seem to recall on October 25th requesting any change orders to be presented to the council for our approval. I seem to recall distinctly making an issue with the fact that, for one thing, the contract didn't appear to be a solid, for sure, set in stone number. And so I thought I made it rather clear that I wanted any change orders to come before the council for their consideration. And so that's why I'm frustrated, as it appears the first 2 I didn't even know about, and they're done now. And then these latest 3 that we're looking at, from what I can tell, the work is already done on those as well.
And that is accurate, and I just received the change orders on the 9th,
You received them on the 9th.
correct.
Okay, and so they're before us today to talk about them or to get approval for the mayor to sign them?
Well, I think the mayor already has approval to sign them via the contract that was signed before with
Okay.
Star.
And I guess my question is, and maybe Star can help me with that, if I understand change orders correctly, change orders are submitted for our review, and then if they're approved, we sign them and then have you do the work. I guess I'm not understanding why it wasn't done that way, or maybe it was.
Well, in each one of these, there was pricing presented on anything that was requested, back and forth via email. Pricing was presented, and then approval was given with some of these formal document for a signature to follow up. I don't want you to think that we're just out adding things and giving you a bill later. Every one of these was in emails back and forth with with a desire to add or take away from the project, and then an approval given via email, and then a follow up with the paperwork that we have before us here today.
So there was an approval via email to go ahead and proceed on the work, and then the work proceeded, now it's done, and now you want a signature for the...
Yeah, we're just tidying some of these things up. I suppose that we could have waited for these signatures. I didn't feel like it was a necessary thing. Felt like the representative had given the approval, and
representative in this case was Polly.
Well, and Brandon, the one on number 3 that you're looking at that is the sizable, that was due to EGT, the company that had originally been hired to do this, went out of business at the end of December. We received the notification that they had closed their doors. And so Michael graciously stepped in to help try to facilitate where we were with the wiring that had been done at that point, where we needed to go, and did all of the background as far as trying to get all of the stuff that you see on number 3 in order to make sure that we had the microphone system and whatnot in place. So otherwise that would not have been on a change order if that had taken place with the company that had originally been hired and not gone out of business. So really the first change order was the one that you see with the credit, the 724, and then the last one is just the one that we were working on, was it last week or the week before, on the counter change out here.
Okay.
So other than the one that you see there for number 3, right at the end of December when that business went out, it kind of left us hanging.
And I guess my question then would be, did you consult with the current mayor about these change orders?
Probably not specifically. In dollar amounts, I probably did not.
And so I guess what I'm wondering then is why the previous mayor seemed to be involved in it, signed off on them, but now that we have a new mayor in charge, putting aside my desire to have seen the change orders before anything went
Sure.
forward, I guess I'm wondering why the current mayor was left out of that loop.
Well, and I don't think that was anything to do with old versus new as far as the mayor is concerned. When the contract was signed and it was taken down to the 541, I think that happened right about the same time that the contract was signed. And so Dave was there to sign the contract. So I think that happened at that time. And then the second one, Michael, I'm not sure when that one was presented to Dave to sign. So these last 3 just came at my request when I sent it to Michael for the last 3. And so it wasn't, I can't speak to when Dave even signed that second one. I don't know.
Okay. And so now let me step back to my main point of frustration is, do you recall the meeting when I mentioned that?
I do.
And so I guess just summarize to me why it did happen.
Well, in all honesty, when we were going through this with the whole construction process, as far as the change orders were concerned, when we were going through and doing things, I knew that the one for EGT would be a change order when that one came through. And I did not follow up with Michael to say, please provide me with that change order so that I can get it to the council. I knew that there was going to be one, and we went back and forth with the prices for the systems, what type of system. We actually pulled back on the one system because it was just too much money, because I was still trying to keep it within budget. So everything that is before you is we're actually still under budget for the total project. And so that was my goal, was keeping it within the project. And I knew that we had the credit coming back from the signage. And then the counter, like I said, the counter was just done last week or the week before when we were trying to make the final changes on the counter.
And I'm not sure if I made this clear back then. The reason I wanted to see any change order was I was trying to avoid city staff making whatever honeydew wish list they wanted and just doing whatever they wanted, just running amok and, doing whatever they wanted, because we have a finite budget, we need to stick within that. And so my frustration, of course, as I've made very clear, is it didn't happen. I asked for it to happen then, and 5 change orders later, it hasn't happened. The work gets done, and now we're receiving the change orders.
Well, I have to state that I feel like we actually saved money in what was originally budgeted with this. So I understand what you're stating about making ludicrous changes within the city hall, but we actually pulled back on what we were going to do when we realized where we were at as far as like the card readers and whatnot. When we were looking at the prices for those and then realizing that EGT hadn't even ordered the units that we thought that they had initially, when Michael and I were looking at that, it wasn't that we were putting in wish lists, if you will, for staff. It was that we made the decision, no, we're not going to implement those card readers. We're just going to go with normal keys right now. We're not going to put that expenditure out.
And while I can appreciate what you're telling me, I don't know if you recall or not, but my main frustration was I wanted to make sure we had money for the library model. I wanted to make sure of that. And the previous council made the decision to go ahead and move forward with this
Correct.
without taking that into consideration.
Correct.
So it sounds like if we were on track to save money, we may have been able to reallocate that savings for the library, but it seems like that decision should have been ours to make. Because I requested it to be our decision to make. And so my frustration is that it didn't happen.
Well, this was still part of the original project. This that you see in front of you, other than the way that the counter was modified in there, what you see in change order 3 was part of the initial contract. It wasn't contracted with STAR, but it was contracted with EGT. So there's no additional spending here. It's just we're paying STAR versus paying EGT. So there's no additional spending that has taken place on the City Hall. We actually will have a credit at the end of the project on what we had initially budgeted for.
So that the EGT
Yes.
that you're talking about,
Yes.
that is something that was approved by the council previously.
That was not part of STAR's contract. That was part of the technical part, how we were going to take care of the parking lot, and we had gone out and solicited because we figured there's no reason to pay STAR to go out and do this when we can do that. So we had budgeted for that, and that $635,000, that was part of that money. So it's not, we didn't spend additional money with STAR to do this. It's just that STAR took it on and took care of it when EGT went bankrupt, or I apologize, they closed their doors. I don't know that it wasn't additional money that was spent.
Okay, so we approved the STAR contract for X amount to build the City Hall.
Correct.
What we're seeing right now then, this number 3,
Yes,
is to do what EGT was going to do.
correct.
Had the council given approval for you guys to seek out bids from EGT and go ahead and just do it?
Yes, there were 3, how many companies did you contact? 3 different companies that were contracted and actually had meetings with them to discuss this is what we need to have put into the facility, and EGT was the lowest bidder of those companies.
And that's something council approved.
Do you recall, did you bring it
I don't recall
before?
on that. No, I was just asked to get the bids.
Well, and again, that's where my confusion's coming from, is I know what we approved as far as the City Hall remodel.
Right.
You know, STAR doing the City Hall remodel. I don't recall approving, besides the fencing, I don't recall approving anything else. So still we're at that point where the work gets done without council approval.
I think it was in that total budget that was presented as I remember it.
We had that, yes, it was the 635, and we had the amount down for the security, the wiring, the camera system, the fence, and so then we had the 635, we had STAR's amount taken off of that, and then we had each of the individual amounts, and that was the time that Pat was going to be getting with the companies and finding the lowest company to go with. And so
Is this one of those things that fell into the category of per owner?
I'm not sure.
Because on the budget, there were some line items that were
Yes.
designated per owner, and this
Yes.
is one of those items.
This is one of those items that during the talks about it at one point, we had it as a budget item that we would carry it.
Right.
And there was some expertise in the city staff and a desire to take that on themselves. And so it was moved out of the budget that we had been carrying into a separate subsection that Polly carried that was part of that total 600 and change.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm done beating this dead horse, but I'm feeling, again, I know what we approved. We approved the STAR contract X amount. And all I'm saying is I don't recall giving approval for this. And so, again, now I don't recall giving approval for this, and the work is done, and now we're reviewing it now. So I've gathered the information I need, so I'll let anyone else talk.
At this time, Connie, did you have a question?
Well, when I was looking at the change orders, I didn't see any authorizing signature. I saw your signature on the change orders and no other signatures. So that was my question, is who did approve, or how did that move forward without any signatures?
Right. And I think that that's what Michael was speaking about with the emails going back and forth. However, Tracy has not signed anything, and so that's probably where, I guess, maybe, and the contract stated that the mayor or myself could do that, but only receiving these on Friday, then Tracy obviously has not had a chance to sign those or approve them.
But weren't they dated February 15th? It looked like they were dated February
Two of them.
15th with one signature, and there were places for 2 more signatures, no more signatures, and they were over, like, basically a month old. So I think that's where some of the questions were coming in as well. How did that proceed a month ago without anybody really realizing? Because it's over $30,000 that we're talking about, so it's a substantial amount to, like I said, move forward. Not that it isn't justified when we hear this angle of it, but seeing that it was done a month ago without any authorizing signatures is, I think, what caused some concern.
And I completely can see that. It was just a movement of who we were paying. Now we're paying Star versus when we were going to be paying EGT.
I think it's a movement of approval of a contract, approval of a change order. I don't see a signature on these documents. So how am I supposed to know that you've authorized any of this stuff, other than your word in an email? I think it's incumbent upon Mr. Arrington to make sure that in the future, if he's going to do any work for the city, that he makes sure that he has proper documentation and signatures on all change orders and contracts prior to doing any work. We ran into this issue when you first started this job, if I recall, starting the work, trying to beat some weather issues and getting started without a contract in place. And as I recall, that was quite a heated meeting as well. And I'm surprised that you would have allowed change orders to go through without a signature. I understand you could work very closely with Polly, and again, I agree with Councilman Hoobler that to save money in this exercise is excellent, and I applaud you for doing that. But I don't see it. I would love to have loved to have seen where the bids came in and where you were able to save us money. I would love to have seen that, but I don't see that. All I see is a change order with no signature for $27,000. It's a month old, and that's disturbing. That's disturbing. So I have to echo Councilman Hoobler's sentiment here that this is in my limited bit of business. This is not the way we do business. We do things that we get things in order, and so I'm disappointed too. So anyway,
There could be some confusion, and every bit of email quoting and authorization by an owner's rep can be, every bit of that can be provided for you. I didn't realize exactly what this evening's discussion is.
right. Well, there was, and I had to jump in there. I was at the meeting when Councilman Hoobler very, very explicitly said, we want to see every change order that comes in prior to the work being done, because there's no fixed amount, and we want to be able to see as a council what's being spent and for what in advance. And as he said, there's at least 3 here before us today, and obviously 2 others where that didn't occur.
I'm in agreement with paperwork. I can see your point of view, though, Mr. Arrington, and the fact that your expectation in good faith via the emails back and forth were that was your authorization. So I can understand your perception of that and why you moved forward with that. We're going to have some more conversation about this as a council, and I think we'll visit with that in a few minutes further. So, does anybody else have any more questions for Mr. Arrington? Okay, thank you. As a point of order, Mr. Hallfield, do we need to make a motion on this right now for approval, or can we?
Do you want to do the proclamation first before you move away from the Arbor Day?
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to understand. There's so much confusion going on around this topic that I'm trying to understand whether or not we need a motion to approve these change orders, or do we need to take action on this right now, or what do we need to do with this?
Sorry, I was moving on to the next thing.
Well, Mayor, I think where everyone is on this, give you an idea of how you table it.
Yes.
for,
Could you turn your speaker on, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
Hang on, how's that? And then table it and then put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
It would be my desire that we could table it, and my recommendation that we table it, but I'm asking you, in your opinion, do we need to take that kind of action on this right now?
I would.
Okay. All right.
I'd like to ask for clarification. Do we need to take action on these that have already been approved apparently and done?
Well, I would not, I would want to see the emails, the backup on this, because like you're saying, there's no signatures here. I would want to see that before I would.
Okay, so your recommendation is that we table it until we get some backup that these are
Correct.
back. Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay. All right, so do we have a motion for this topic? Yes, we have to make a motion to table it, yes.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we table the discussion on the city hall change orders, 3, 4, and 5.
I'll second that.
The motion and seconded. The question, please.
Richmond,
Yes.
Eisenhower,
Yes.
Safka,
Yes.
Hoobler,
Yes.
One of the amendments that we made to the agenda is the proclamation, adding the proclamation for Arbor Day to new business. So we will call that item C. And it is, I will just read this aloud, okay? It says, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And trees are a renewable resource, giving up paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality in business areas, and beautify our community. Also, trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, and this is how it reads at the bottom of this, I, Tracy Armstrong, Mayor of the City of Kimberly, do hereby proclaim April 27th as Arbor Day in the City of Kimberly. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Also, further, I urge all citizens to plant and care for trees, to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. This will be dated this day, this year, and signed by me. That's what the form reads. So, at this point, does council have any questions or comments on this? No? Do we have a motion? We don't need to do that. Okay. We don't need a motion. Okay. All right. Well, so there it stands. It has been proclaimed. All right. Moving on to ordinances and resolutions. We have item A, a resolution to create the office of city administrator. It was initially presented by, or proposed, or brought up, I guess I should say, by Councilman Hoobler. And we are actually going to go into, per motion made by one of the council members, we're going to go to executive session to discuss this a little bit. But at this time, I would like to open it up to public comment for public input. So if anybody has any public input on this topic at this time, please step forward and come to the podium and share what you'd like to say.
Mayor and Councilman Speak louder.
Okay.
Miss Kimberly, also, could you state your name and your address for the, just
Oh,
for the record?
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Lee McKinley, 607 Diamond Drive, here in Kimberly. I would like to take the opportunity to express my thoughts on the validity of having a city administrator for the city of Kimberly. If this position would be eliminated, the city would take a huge step backwards. We have seen so much progress the last 4 years since this position was created. There are many positive points on having a city administrator. Our city administrator has made a point to join and be active in several professional organizations, both locally and statewide, that have brought much recognition to our city. Our city administrator has been very diligent in learning the process of grant writing and has succeeded in bringing funding to the city over and above what our annual budget allows for projects. As one example, with our recent water project, through diligent planning, our city administrator was able to access a $1 million forgiveness on our $6.5 million water project. Not just everyone has the expertise to find those areas of funding. When Mr. Eiler, who is here tonight, came to the city with a proposal that we look into having an RV dump provided for the city, our city administrator was the one that went right to work and found the funding to make that possible for that project. And it is in the process of happening early this year. The process of grant writing takes a great deal of time. Having the city administrator position in place allows time to pursue this skill. There are countless projects that have been completed and are in the planning process due to a city administrator being knowledgeable enough to pursue said grants. The Center Street East project, paving project, has given the road a 30-year road life. And there are like plans to complete the other arterials into the city, North and South Main and West Center. The project to install a traffic light at Red Cap Corner was moved forward due to our city administrator working with our maintenance department as well as other agencies. We all know that this has been needed for a long time, and to have it move forward at a more rapid pace is serving our citizens well. How long have we all heard that the need for sidewalks on South Main and Emerald Drive are imperative for the safety of our children walking home from school? Again, our city administrator has organized the way for this to happen. Along with Jamie Carlton and her efforts and many others in the community as well as outside agencies, we have seen the Safe Routes to School project fall into place. This all takes time and effort, ladies and gentlemen. Through diligent budgeting by our city administrator, the city was able to pay off the 1994 water bond early to save all taxpayers much principal and interest. I'm sure you have all noticed a drop in your water bills of $6.58 since this early payoff occurred. Do you all recall that when we listened to the annual audit report in January, that the city accountant said this was the first time he could ever remember that there were no, and I repeat, no deficiencies in our report. Kudos to our city administrator for delving into the budget and solving the problem areas to improve our budget report. These kind of things take time. In my opinion, a salary and position for a city administrator is justified. When you think of all the extra funding that has been acquired through grants and diligent efforts by our current city administrator, it would be in our best interest to keep this position in place. Thank you for your time in hearing my request.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Nay. I don't live in the city. Am I allowed to speak?
Yes.
Okay. My address is 3442 Addison Avenue East, Kimberly. Kimberly, as you know, is growing, and I believe that we're very fortunate to have the position of administrator, because you need a professional in these times when there are so many regulations and rules. It's a full-time job to administer a city, and I would urge you to adopt this ordinance so that we can maintain a professional who can look after the coming growth and keep our community the wonderful place it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes, ma'am. Please come forward.
I just want to know, if there isn't the office created, then who does what happens? Who does the work? Who administers? That's what, I just want to know what the alternative is.
Nancy, can you come back and state your name
Oh,
and
certainly.
your address, please? Thank you.
My name is Nancy Duncan. I live at 502 Diamond Drive.
Okay.
Maybe I can speak.
Thank you. Did you want to say something? Not really? Okay. Well, the idea, which I can tell you the system that was in place before the administrator position was implemented, and the clerk and deputy clerk managed and handled the majority of the things at that time and the workload that took place at that time with the assistance of the mayor. So that's what was in place before the administrator position was implemented. Did that answer your question?
Well, not really, because you didn't tell me what you plan to do. If you don't create the office.
Well, let's clarify something first. The office and the position was appointed through ordinance in November. Okay, so the resolution that came before us tonight was actually to define the job descriptions of that position. So it's not to do away with the position. The ordinance that was passed in I believe it was in November. Do you remember when it was?
I think it was December.
Okay, it was in December. It appointed several of the department heads, the city attorney, the engineer, the administrator, chief, the city clerk. All of those positions were actually appointed at that time, and it was established. That is, that information is per Association of Idaho Cities, and they have confirmed that that process was already taken care of clear back in December. So that's actually not what's going on tonight. I understand what some of the thoughts were on that, but that actually isn't what was being considered to the resolution. So there will be some conversation that we have regarding this in executive session, and so the further conversation regarding that topic will take place there. Does anybody else have any other input on this topic?
Tom Koontz, 835 Main South in Kimberly. I hesitate strongly to come up here and stand before Polly because I had the privilege of working with her when I was on the council. I understand and I know for a fact that she has done some great things. As far as the books and so on and so forth, they were in pretty shabby shape. My question to you as a council is, first of all, is it legal to change the form of government without going to the citizenry? Secondly, can a city of this size support a salary of that size? And thirdly, the things that I hear that Polly has done, and I'm not being critical as a person, because I know she's very dedicated, but do we as a community need all of these grants that are coming before us? And are the people willing to pay for it? I hear the word grant, and everybody assumes that it's free money, just like the downtown revitalization. the city's gonna have to come up with basically $300,000 to complete that project for a block and a half. How many of those businesses are gonna go broke? How many people in this community want that to happen? It's not a slum and blight area. There was a lot of time spent by Polly and Mitzi and some of the other people in this room to spruce up the downtown. They did a marvelous job. To me, the biggest issue in this town is to keep the town viable. The way I understand it, the Twin Falls is probably, and if this goes on record, I better change the word. I'm not going to say the enemy, but we need to have a new contract drawn up so that we do have wastewater and sewage flowing that direction. If that can't be established for something that we can afford, there is a study going on right now with Hanson. We're going to have a pre-treatment plant. I think those kinds of things are much more important than working downtown, just to keep this as a city. So it's you guys' decision whether or not we can afford it or not. For instance, the grant that Mrs. McKinley said for $6 million, I agree that she probably put the paperwork together, but that was already in planning. Some of the grants that I've seen listed that she's asking for instance, $10,000 coming from Idaho Power, I know for a fact that it's $500. So there's some of these things that were taken care of before we had a city administrator, that were done by a hired grant writer from outside. No vacation time, a lot less wage. The city had no commitments. They were handled very nicely. They were handled thoroughly, and that could be done again. So I appreciate the time, and I know it's embarrassing for me to stand up here and say that, but I think there's a lot of things that need to be brought up and looked at that affect the community standing behind me before these things are decided. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Does anybody else have anything to comment on this topic?
I have a question now.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the ordinance that you're talking about, resolution? Is it what it says, ordinance and resolution? What is it? I can't read it from here.
The resolution to create the office of city administrator, and the resolution was left on the agenda because I knew there was people that wanted to talk about it. The topic of discussion that we have to go further into needs to be accomplished in executive session. So there was a lot of comment brought to my attention that there were folks that wanted both sides of the equation, support and non-support for the position. So in this open forum, that's the whole purpose of having the conversation. So, did I answer your question?
No.
No.
Sorry, I did not understand.
The original intent for the resolution tonight, the interpretation was that we needed to pass a resolution implementing that position. When that was brought to our attention, it was posted on the agenda, there was some misunderstanding that some folks didn't realize that it had already taken place. Okay? So that process of actually creating that as an appointed position took place in December. So as far as creating that position, it was already done.
Okay, so we're just discussing it.
We're discussing some of the topic and some of the things surrounding it, yes.
And then the executive session is to,
The executive session is to talk about some personnel matters related to that position.
personnel matters.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Ruth Skinson, 240 West Center. I'm just wondering if any of you know, we're not Twin Falls. We don't need all this stuff. I've lived here 44 years, and we've never had a city administrator until just the last 4 or 5 years. And how many little towns our size has a city administrator? that makes that much money. Thank you.
Councilman Richmond.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Jess Harold, 608 West Taylor, Kimberly. My question is, this was done back in November, but the community did not know that was happening. Was it actually done legal?
Yes, sir. The ordinance that was put in place was legal. Now, let's keep in mind what was done wasn't the fact that the structure of the city government changed. That did not take place. We're addressing two different issues here, and I think we need to define some of this. You've got the issue of switching government from the mayoral form of government right now to a city manager form of government, which requires a city vote of the people. Now, the thing that was done back in December was the theory behind appointing officials, department heads, those types of things. Every mayor appoints somebody to those positions to fill them. And according to ICRIM, which is the insurance agency for the city, and Association of Idaho Cities, the understanding of that is those folks are in theory already appointed. So when a new mayor takes office, they assume the same staff. Now, what isn't done officially was what was put in place in December. So there actually has to be an ordinance put in place establishing those positions. So basically that the housework was done. There was already a process and a system in place, but it wasn't made official until the ordinance was passed. So we need to make sure that we're understanding, everybody, myself included, that what was done was some housekeeping. The position of the city administrator was established by appointment to begin with when Mayor Oberaker appointed Polly as the city administrator and gave her that title. That was done then. The minute he took action and did that, it was accomplished. The housekeeping was done for the official piece of it when the ordinance was passed. Any changes past that, switching from the current form of government we have now as the mayoral form of government to a city management, where the city manager is overseeing everything, has to go to a vote before the people, and that's not what we're trying to do today.
Well, there was a lot of stuff done under the old city council, the old mayor, that was done under the table, and everybody knows it. And this sounds like part of the same thing.
I've been on the council 2 years now, and I've worked for places that have had good financial systems and good accounting and good reporting. I've also seen businesses that have had bad financial reporting and bad systems. There's a city nearby here that they were in the hole $500,000, and I thought to myself, how could that happen? Well, it's because of their financial system. It's not because the council, wasn't paying attention or something. But you have to have good reporting, good accounting, good fiscal responsibility. And I think we're being very short-sighted if we're just concentrating on how much a person is making in their position, because that position is well worth what we pay, and it's brings in a lot more money than we pay. And I think we're making a huge mistake if we just say you're making too much money and we really don't know what that position is. I can tell you what that position does, and it's very valuable to the city. A lot of these projects that are going on, a lot of these improvements are because we have a good administrator. And I think we're not being wise in planning and looking ahead if we just concentrate on, well, you're making so much money, and are you working this hour or this hour? I'd hate to be like the city that's nearby where we're $500,000 in the hole and nobody knows it. I mean, and that can happen very quickly in a city. We go through a lot of money, and so it takes a lot of accounting and budgeting and planning and thinking, actually the city of Kimberly is in pretty good shape. And I attribute that to the administrator and the staff that we have. So I think we need to not look at just the salary and look past that and see what we can do for the city of Kimberly.
I'd like to just very briefly address the comments from the previous gentleman. The very fact that we're having this discussion in the open and that we're inviting the public to come and speak to this issue, I think actually speaks to the fact that we're not trying to do anything, under the table or behind closed doors. There are certain personnel matters that we're going to have to discuss in private, and that's what the executive session is for. However, it's my understanding that the ordinance before us is again, just more or less a housekeeping issue to define the role and the duties of the administrator as it was put in place back in December. It probably should have been done back then, but it wasn't. And so that's what's before us now. So again, I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. But again, we're looking at defining it. There are some verbiage in the resolution before us that I disagree with, that I think that needs some clarification. So again, that is something that we're going to be discussing in executive session. But again, I thank everybody for their comments tonight. So
I just had one. I wanted to make a clarification for my own sake because I just found out something today that I guess I wasn't aware of. Bill, can you tell me? I'm understanding that we already have an office of city administrator, and so if something were to happen to our current city administrator, we don't need to have anything in place that says that we need to get a city administrator. You know what I mean? I mean, we have a current position in place for city administrator, even if Polly wasn't here.
Mayor Overacre in 2010, I think it was June of 2010, appointed Polly as the city administrator. There was nothing in paper. There was the ordinance that was passed in December that appointed 6 places as appointing offices for the city, and city administrator was one of them. So it is in place, city administrator. This resolution defines that position, that provides on how that position is terminated, or the person in that position is terminated.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to say one more thing. As a former city council member, I think my integrity was put on the line tonight. And I'd like Mr. Harrell to know that everything and every decision and every ordinance that was passed was done in a public meeting. And he could have been here to hear that. Thank you.
Mr. Hallfield, I don't believe that any action needs to be taken on this tonight because the position and the item in question was already accomplished, correct? The appointment was already taking place, the office stands, and so correct me if I'm wrong?
Well, the resolution that's before the council was the old one.
Right.
Okay, and that needs work.
Correct. Okay.
To bring it up to what's happened since December.
Sure.
And I thought this was going to be discussed with other issues in the executive session.
Yes.
Well, I think for his clarification and for my own clarification, frustrating for me because I requested this to be on the agenda, do we need to pass something along this line to maintain what we have with the city administrator we have?
I think we do. It outlines.
And you'll explain that further in executive session?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
We just want to make it clear that any action that would be taken after executive session, we will come back out to this forum. The motion will be made. It will be with respect of the several things. It will be made with respect of those things and defined as a motion, and a vote will be taken on those things. So post executive session, we will come back out here and vote on what action needs to be taken on this item.
Well, Mayor, may I
Yes.
comment on that? That's not necessarily what will happen. It'll depend on what the council wants to do. I mean, the council could go to the executive session, come out of the executive session, and
Not take any action.
nothing happened.
Right.
So,
You're correct. I stand corrected.
and that happens, as we know, or the other members, or the older members on the council, that's happened quite a bit. So that,
Okay. Thank
don't
you.
want to mislead the
Sure.
folks.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to item B, ordinance of the annexation of the Godfrey property. Jenny?
Yes. Pardon me. This ordinance pertains to the de-annexation of the Godfrey property. The Planning and Zoning Commission did approve Mr. Godfrey's request contingent upon his signature of a consent to annexation prepared by legal counsel. I do have that letter, although Mr. Godfrey has yet to sign. And the letter was included in your packets, I understand.
Okay, all right. So, without the letter signed, can we move forward?
I must turn Mr. Murphy.
Well, that is it's contingent on, from the planning and zoning, the ordinance or the de-annexation. Sorry, we don't do that many de-annexations, generally annexation. But it was contingent on Mr. Godfrey and the other person here signing that consent to annex their property down later on when city services were available to that property.
Okay.
And so if you haven't signed it, and the council wants to make that part of the, contingent upon the passing of that ordinance, they can do that. And it doesn't get passed, it doesn't become official until he signs that.
Okay. Mr. Godfrey, do you have anything to comment on this?
Sure. I can comment if you don't.
Okay. Could you come forward and comment for a second?
My name is Lance Godfrey, 3875 North, 3600 East. In reference to the letter, I did get the letter last week, read through it as you have it in front of you. I have some concerns about the letter, and they are pretty evident, I think, by the letter. It ties my hands and all posterity from here to the end of time that the annexation, I would not have due process of the annexation property process happening again. So it looks like to me that the de-annexation process would forego me being into any kind of an annexation process, which is due process. And so I explained that to the lawyer last time we met, that I would have a problem with that because it's only right that everyone has an opportunity for due process. I'm allowing the city and the city services to do the de-annexation through due process, which, by the way, is over 7 months in time. And I think due process for re-annexation would only be fair, personally. The next issue that I have a problem with is the funds that have been expended by Select Source. They are unaccounted for. The funds in 2010 were $6,000. The funds in 2011 were $7,000. I'm guessing the funds in 2012 will be $8,000. So there's no way of signing those things that precludes me from going back. In my opinion, I am for Kimberly. When services get there, I have no problem being annexed in. It's not an issue. I'm not trying to fight the city. I just spent all day at a city meeting foregoing my own business to try to help the city and to learn myself, which, by the way, was a wonderful meeting. I did get some good insight, and I appreciate the meeting. And I'm proactive. I'm proactive. I'm pro-Kimberly. I'm not against Kimberly. It's frustrating to me that those things are not taken into account, and nor can they be. Of course, a lawyer doesn't know that those funds have been expended. I'm not asking for the money back. But I do think it would be fair that when annexation happens again, that I would be able to go through due process and say, I've already prepaid 3 years in advance, so let's prolong this thing for 3 years so that my annexation would be fair 3 years from now, or when it's re-annexed in. There's just a lot of things that can happen, and I think doing this process and not allowing me to go through the process and have an annexation hearings and go through the process is unfair. And so I can get legal counsel, which I have, and I can have them write letters, and we can tag team it back and forth between legal counsel, which will add more expensive. But I think it's fairly obvious that, from my perspective, that it just needs to be completed. I don't understand why it's getting so complicated, but maybe there's other things I don't understand. So I could get legal counsel, I guess, and write a letter. My process now would be to get legal counsel and write it back, a letter to your counsel, stating why that I didn't think that would be fair. I think this is a better open forum. I just want due process when it comes around. When I go back in, I just want the same deal that I had before. When I did get annexed in, I'm not going to ask for more than that. Hopefully I'll still be in business and everything will be fine. And it's going to run for the rest of this year anyway. If you pass a resolution today de-annexing the property, it has to go before the state Iowa board. I mean, there's processes that has to happen, and it won't change for 2012 no matter what we do in this meeting. It will not change. I will be paying an additional $8,000 in taxes in 2012 no matter what we do tonight. So, and that's a lot of nails and screws. That's a lot of perfect tape by. And so, when I do get the services, when that all takes place, if I'm still the owner, that's fine. But to bind the property based on if I lose a property under the way that that's written, if I lose a property and somebody else takes the property, they would be under the binding signed law that they would have to be annexed at the will of, without due process. So that's my point.
Do we have does anybody have any questions for Mr. Doctor?
What would you like to see happen? I mean, what's your solution?
I'd like to be friends with Kimberly somehow. I like to do what's right for my community. About everybody back here behind me is my customers. Everybody in front of me is my customers. I want what's best for the city. I've always wanted what's best for the city. I just want, when services come and I can get it the services the way they were. By the way, the subdivision that was put in that went defunct and bankrupt was the one that really has caused the problem. It's not you, it's not the city, and it's not me. It's just an unfortunate way that this all came about. They were going to bring the water and the sewer directly through my property without any cost to me. I was going to deed them some property. I expanded the road. I put in wide roads, which now Butte Fence and Irrigation is taking advantage of. But that was all done and paid for by me, which was thousands of dollars, $70,000 to be exact. I mean, the amount of money that I've tried to do to make everything right it's pretty evident that I'm not against the city. So from my perspective, I want de-annexation, and I want due process when I get annexed again. And by the way, I give you my word that I'm not going to be fighting it. I just want what's fair. So I will be asking for 3 years of nothing. Once that area is done, I think it would be fair that I would not be taxed for 3 years. Let's say that happens in 2020. Then by 2023, then I would start paying the taxes again, or some way to be fair. Whatever's fair. Maybe the tax dollars won't be the same, and that's fine too. We could change that, but I think I do need due process, and to sign that kind of a document is too much. It's too far.
Okay. Brandon?
Actually, I just had a question for Jenny Nickerson or Bill. The Planning and Zoning Board came up with that determination or that decision that they wanted this letter signed. What was the thought process behind that?
Recommendation by legal experts on the annexation of the Boise area was to ensure, if you are going to approve a de-annexation request, to make sure that in the future you can re-annex that property with lesser hurdles.
Lesser hurdles than due process?
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm just clarifying.
Forgive my wording. The concept of this letter of consent for future annexation was to ease the overall annexation process for a future large annexation, not specifically targeting select source and the Butte Fence site, but more of a larger annexation process so that those sites could be incorporated.
And what we have out there is Mr. Godfrey's property. Then you have the big zoning, or the big subdivision that was out there that did go bankrupt. But if somebody, a bank or sells it to someone and they start developing there, it's tough because you have to get everybody to agree to the annexation, or you have to go to court on part of it. So it's a lot easier to have, like Mr. Godfrey, that like he did way back when, agree with his neighbors there that when the water comes through there, I'm going to hook up and I'm going to give you this, and everybody cooperates, and that's basically what it is. And that's what they're trying to do.
Given the circumstances, I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Godfrey was a little gun shy going down the road, making sure that all of his neighbors were actually going to follow through with their commitments, because it sounds like, unfortunately, you've been kind of left holding the bag on some things. I don't think Mr. Godfrey would disagree that a letter maybe outlining intentions on both sides with maybe a little less stringent wording might be acceptable. Allowing some due process. I read through this and it is pretty binding. Granted, I understand there's precedent for this, and so that's where we were driving this from. But I personally would be in favor of rewording a little bit and maybe do a little more give and take. I'd hate for Mr. Godfrey to have to go through the expense of counsel. But again, I'm no lawyer, so it'll be difficult for me to come up with the right wording. But I can't have a hard time not disagreeing with Mr. Godfrey's position on the letter.
Well,
I just had one other thought. This is new to me. I've only been doing this for the last 2 years, and I've never run through something like this. So, in your experience, is it better that because the Planning and Zoning Board came up with this request and Les Godfrey's not agreeing with it, that it goes back through them, or is now the time that we take care of this?
I think now is the time that council takes care of it. It's a change from what the planning and zoning did. But I think let's get it done. Let's vote on it, get it done, let Mr. Godfrey go on as well.
And it's not my understanding that the concern is the consent to annexation as a letter, as a requirement. It's the wording of this specific consent to annexation.
Yeah.
So it would still be in keeping with the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval. So we're not looking for a
Binding document.
an appeal to the Planning and Zoning Commission's decision, more just an alteration to the letter itself.
I absolutely would love to, I'd love to be part of the city as it comes. It's just not fair to me. It hasn't been since day one. That's all.
well, why can't we do this, Mr. Godfrey and Mr. Hollifield, if you two could get together and come to some kind of verbiage context in this contingency that he's comfortable with, that you're comfortable with for the city, find some common ground here and see, can we do that?
Well, I think maybe the easiest thing to do would be to consider approving his annexation request and not, without requiring the consent to annexation form. I think that's probably what you were talking about. Just consider that, either act on it or don't, and there's no reason to get another letter drafted. That would be my suggestion, is we either reconsider either approving it or some other course of action without requiring the consent to annexation.
That addresses one of his concerns, but the other concern he had is somehow in the future getting some kind of credit for when it's re-annexed.
Also, could be addressed in a letter of consent.
Yes.
There's a lot of legal questions on that. whether he can get a refund or how we do that. I would recommend that the council either vote to go ahead and with his de-annexation, let him go, and not tie any of that into this, because we don't know what's gonna happen, or if the taxing authorities go for it. That's an unknown. I know that somebody, you yourself, Mayor, mentioned something about financial. I just know it's difficult. That's a tough question, and I haven't looked into it, and I don't want to see the city get tied up in making that contingent on this at all.
And I guess my question too would be, I know that you are very Kimberly friendly, but if the property would change ownership, that could put the city in a very difficult position down the road. If someone wasn't willing to agree to the annexation, that could put the city in a very bad position for the area. Am I understanding that correctly? So you're very Kimberly friendly, but if, we don't have any timeline on this, say it takes 6 years, whatever, for annexation, that could be a very different situation if you're not the property owner. And I think maybe that's what they were getting at with the legal part of it, if I'm understanding that correctly.
But it wouldn't be any different than any other person out there. I have one little piece of property.
But you would have to agree to the annexation in order for the area to be annexed, is that correct?
Just as one. I mean, it'd be the same as the Jacksons and.
So if you were between that, okay, maybe I misunderstand. I thought if you were between the subdivision and the city.
Well, I was at one time when I held the full 10 acres. There was a plan in there to put a road in, and there was some sewage that was going down, and a lift station. There was all kinds of things that were done that the city council probably didn't even know about, nor did planning and zoning probably didn't know about.
So one parcel wouldn't hold up an area of annexation in the future. That's
not during due process. I don't know how it could, because I'd just be one person.
I suppose it would depend on the proposed area of annexation. If your property specifically was the property in between the desired annexed area and the area of impact and the existing city limits, we wouldn't be able to jump. It has to be a contiguous piece, and even connection by a highway, I understand, is a very sensitive issue.
Yeah, that's what caused the problem in the first place. Dave Aberson said I had to be annexed in because it was direct line. That's what created the whole problem that started. Yeah, and so that's why I'm having trouble with the due process. That's all.
Lance, I have a question. If we were to meet partway maybe and possibly approve the annexation request, excluding the consent to annexation, would you be amiable to that?
I think so, as long as you, as a city council, and I think it was recorded that, that I think that there have been some problems in the past. I think we need to do a gentleman's agreement. I think the only way out, I think the legal thing is not the way to go personally, but, I do. Yeah, I'm able to look towards that at the present time. Whether I can stay in business or whether I can maintain that property, I don't know that. Just like you don't know that.
I'd like to think, yes, we're all gentlemen and ladies here. No doubt that your intentions are good, and I can't question that. But I recall a time, not in the too distant past, where there were gentlemen's agreements made that weren't, not by you, by others, that were not fulfilled, unfortunately. So I kind of have an issue with that going forward on a handshake when that has not worked very good for Kimberly in the past.
I don't know how you guys can have legal counsel and I cannot have legal
counsel.
No,
I'm not saying you should. No, I'm not saying we shouldn't. I think that we should have some kind of middle ground here and have something, come up with something that is actually amiable for you. I think that we do need to do fair by you. But I think that we need to have something defined as to our expectations and your expectations that's agreed upon between the two of us. Moving forward, and because you want to protect yourself as does the city. I think that'd be my position on it.
When you say defined, what are you referring to? The action that we're taking here, or a separate document?
Separate document.
Separate document. Outside of the consent form, Just help me understand what we're talking about at this point.
Well, I think what Jim's talking about is he's trying to take into consideration Lance's concern over the 3 years of property taxes.
Sure.
And so I guess what I'm trying to ask Lance is, would you be willing to give that up if we were to give up the consent to annexation and just approve the annexation?
No, I'd have to table that.
Okay.
Bring it back in 2 weeks. You're asking a lot. In my opinion, I'm the only person here that has been wronged. This is my opinion only. I have been wronged by the city, and I'm asking for you to straighten it out. And it's frustrating, really frustrating. I don't understand. I do not understand. But I can write a letter if that's what you want. I'll listen to whatever you have to say, but I am frustrated because the guy that's standing in front of you is the guy that's been wronged. It's not the city, it's me, in my opinion. And I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I could do the whole presentation if you'd like. Don't have it with me, but I'd be glad to do that. So,
well, perhaps we could talk about this at a different time. I would like to get together with you and find out exactly how the city wronged you, because I'm not probably abreast to the whole history, and I haven't attended the planning and zoning meetings. So it sounds like probably the best course of action at this time is to table it for future discussion.
Members of the council, this has been, as Mr. Godfrey alluded to, he's been waiting a long time, and I think the quickest to get it done, and it gets to the state tax commission, then we got the clock ticking the other way. I think if it gets up there right away, then he's not going to have to pay taxes for this year, and so I would urge the council to go ahead and act on it.
And I'm perfectly agreeable to that. It just sounds like Mr. Godfrey doesn't want that to happen just yet. So I think to help with him with his concerns, I think it's fair for us to consider all the aspects of.
no, I want to de-annex as quickly as possible, but I don't want to be anti and to not due process when it comes back out again.
Well, I think that's what we're saying is we would remove the consent to annexation requirements. And so if we did that, would you be okay if we approved your de-annexation today?
That would mean that he would forego any expectation of credit.
A tax credit in the future.
That's a $20,000 question.
Because if we were to put something in writing, we could potentially address those concerns. I mean, that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see something that addresses those future concerns of, I don't want reimbursement or however you want to put the words. But again, that's something that kind of has to be done legally, so that you get what's due to you, and in the same stroke, giving you due process, but on the same stroke, giving us some assurances that when the time comes, that process will go smoothly and have your backing on it, essentially, if you're still the owner. I think that's kind of where I'm headed.
I agree. It's just hard for us to make a quick decision on what you're asking for right now without us previously knowing about it or knowing all the legal ramifications. So I guess what I was trying to get at is if you were willing to forego that, I didn't see any reason why we couldn't exclude the consent to annexation and approve it today. But if that was a sticking point to you, then I feel like it's definitely something we need to consult legal counsel about and make sure all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And so that would take a little bit longer, is what my point was.
If you can, I would suggest if you're able to do so, write a letter that I don't want to say counters, but basically, on your end, I think that would be a great, if you're willing to do that.
I'd be glad to.
And that way we have an idea really of what your expectations are, and then we can maybe combine the two into something that's reasonable for both of us. If that's
what you'd like to do, I would do that.
Okay. So then what we're saying is that we're going to come back to this. We're going to table it for now. We're going to come back to it until Lance can kind of spell out what his expectations are, and then we can research it tax-wise. Mr. Hallfield can research it, make sure that we're not going to get any liability issues with the city versus the state tax, those types of things. That's what we're saying.
Well, can't you de-annex now so that he doesn't have to pay taxes for 2012?
Without the signed document though, would that, is the signature kind of sticking point here or not?
So that was the way the vote came from P and Z, to have that consent annexation signed, contingent on passing the ordinance. But in my opinion, the council can go ahead and pass that ordinance without taking into consideration or making the condition of that the consent to annexation.
Okay, so we can specify that in
the motion.
In the motion, and even though the P and Z recommended it. Okay. So do we have a motion?
Again, my caution, and maybe correct me if I'm just totally confused here. If we were to approve it today, just removing the consent to annexation, Lance wouldn't have any grounds to have that leverage on that refunded tax dollars. Is that right?
I don't know if he's got any leverage right now, but that's,
well,
he would not be able to.
Well, my point is he wants us to consider it. And so I think there's no way we would probably consider it if it's already been approved.
That would be my thinking.
And so, Lance, I hope you're understanding, I definitely want to approve your de-annexation, but I'm also wanting to take your concerns into consideration. So it's really whatever you want. I mean, do you want us to table this until we take a look at your concerns?
I don't know, it's too big of a question for me, and you know, I have too many things to think about. I don't know what to tell you. You know, maybe I just lose the 20,000. It's just such a huge amount for a little guy. Like, it's just huge.
Lance, if we tabled it for 2 weeks, reconvened the next council meeting, and approached this again, and did what we needed to do, would that give you the time that you would need to consider what's going on, process all that, and that would give us time to research tax-wise whether or not we can or can't, with or without liability on the city for the credit, if that's what it came down to?
Yes.
You'd be okay with that?
I would.
Tabling it for 2 weeks?
I don't think 2 weeks. I don't think 2 weeks. It's been 2.5 years. I mean, I don't think 2 weeks is going to.
All right.
And I think from the council standpoint, it can be a gentleman's discussion. You don't need to get legal counsel for us to consider what you're talking about, but I think I would really be very nervous about a gentleman's agreement. I think it does have to be a legal agreement, but we can definitely talk without legal counsel and get this resolved and then come back and do what's best.
So, based on that, do we have a motion? If we're going to table, we have a motion to table.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we table the discussion on de-annexing the Godfrey property.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
The motion is seconded. The question, please.
Sofka,
Yes.
Eisenhower,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yeah.
Hoobler,
Yes.
Okay, item C, which is the de-annexation of Outdoor Products LLC property. Okay.
All right, and this is a similar request with similar stipulation for the consent of annexation. I did receive an email from Judy Beck, managing member of Outdoor Products LLC, stating that she would like more time to review the consent to annexation with her attorney and was not able to make this meeting. So she didn't have any desire one way or any instructions one way or another. She just wished for additional time to review the letter.
Okay. So, based off of that information, do we have a motion?
I move that we table discussion on the de-annexation of the Outdoor Products LLC until such time as we've had a chance to hear the property owner's position.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and it's seconded that it be tabled. Question, please?
Richmond,
Yes.
Sofka,
Yes.
Hoobler,
Yes.
Eisenhower,
Yes.
Item has been tabled. Item number 7, administrative staff reports.
I do. I have a couple things. Am I on?
No.
You're on the floor. Yes, you know.
Okay. I wanted to show you our new sign that we received, and this was through Idaho Smart Growth with our participation in doing the counting of our pedestrian counts along with our students that are in our statistics class at the high school. And they helped us do a canvas of our neighborhood with our current sidewalks and the situations. And so out of the state, Kimberly had the best volunteer participation. So this was delivered to us yesterday, actually, by Elaine Clay from Idaho Smart Growth. And we will be actually featured on their website, I believe. So the goal is to get the statistics class that helped us around the sign and take a picture of the sign. And then I visited with Ted Wasco yesterday and this morning in our meeting about the best place to put this in our school districts. And Elaine thought that we could perhaps purchase a couple more of these for around $250. And I think that the visibility for these in our crosswalk sections is a whole lot better for our students that are crossing versus the little orange cones that we currently have in place right now. So we're certainly looking into maybe purchasing some more of those, but just wanted to say congratulations for receiving that. And then...
Can I ask a question real quick? Polly?
Oh, sorry.
Is there
I was like,
money
where's
left
that voice
from the state roads to school? Is there money left that could be allocated for purchasing more signs?
I believe there is,
Awesome.
that we could utilize in that. And I was ecstatic when she said that those were only $250 because I believe that the amount that for those cones, I think they were $150 a piece for the cones. So we're excited to get that out and get feedback from the citizens and the students, especially in the morning when the sun becomes an issue. If you're driving eastbound and that sun is coming up, being able to see the visibility wise. So we had our...
Did the school district buy those cones or did the city?
It was a joint effort, so we split it. The second thing I wanted to say is that we had our second citywide planning meeting the other day, which we're having that on a quarterly basis. And Jackie Fry was there, she was at our last council meeting as well doing the emergency planning. But she gave us some great tips as far as staff training and possible certification that we can do with our staff, and also information for the council. And I believe that she was going to email out, so I'll follow up with that as well. But some Tracy Mayor Armstrong had visited with her before about certifications that possibly could help with his position in emergency and disaster planning arena. So it was nice to have her present as well. I wanted to let you know that Family Health Services, Bill prepared the agreement, the lease agreement, and then also the letter of understanding between the city and Family Health Services. And that will be coming before you on I think our next meeting is the 27th, I believe, or the 28th. And so we got that to them last Friday so that their legal counsel will have an opportunity to review those documents. And then it will be coming before you on that Tuesday evening, and it will also be going before their board that Tuesday evening as well. So hopefully at that point, both of you will have an opportunity to approve that, and we'll be moving forward. So on that same note, speaking about the demolition of City Hall, I followed up with Rob this morning to find out on the bids, and he had the one from PMF at $19,960, and that bid also included a 6-inch base after they demoed the building to put an additional 6 inches. So that wasn't even anything that we had requested. So I thought that that was pretty good considering. And then he received one more from Twin Falls Crane, and that was for $24,912.50. And he stated that he has tried to get with Sweets, and there's one other, I don't recall the name, and they have not responded back to him. So hopefully we will have at least 3, if not 4 of these to bring before you at the next council meeting, and then you can make a decision on moving forward with the demo. So there's not a hurry on that at this point. to move forward.
Polly, did Rob ever put together a proposal for his crew? I know he said that the other proposals looked really attractive compared to his numbers. Did he ever put together actual numbers?
Jim, he did initially. I don't know that he's gone back and revisited that, but with our initial grant application, he put together an extremely detailed spreadsheet of hours, equipment rental,
Okay.
and all of that, which is where he came up with the figure to put into the original grant application.
Right.
So, but I don't know if he's followed up with that as far as a new one when you spoke about that at the last meeting or 2
I don't know
meetings
if it was
ago.
me, but it came up. And
Yes.
it would just be nice to have those numbers alongside of the proposals, just so we can see.
But I remember.
Sure.
Yeah, I had visited with him, and he shared with me, and I believe I'm remembering this correctly, I could be wrong, but he said somewhere to the tune of $70,000 to $73,000.
Really? For his crew?
Yeah. So,
And
but
I-
because we would have to hire out all the dump trucks for disposal. We would have, all that stuff. A lot of those places have places to take the rock and some of the debris and those types of things.
Well, and I think in that same token, he also indicated that we would have to pay, like you said, for wherever we were disposing of it as well.
Right.
So the 19,000 on the lowest bid at this point actually includes the disposal of it as well.
Oh, I have a question.
Sure.
I know that his number came in at that 79 or close to 80,000, and I thought that's what our matching contribution was going to be. So I'm just out of curiosity's sake, if we were to do a lesser bid, say 19,000, what else would the city be required to do in order to live up to that obligation?
I'm not certain that I know the exact answer to that question, but I think that that's been asked of Jeff before, and Jeff just said that as long as the outcome was still the same, that we would be okay, but let me follow up on that to make sure that I answer that correctly for you, because I'm not that familiar with that grant.
Okay.
So.
That was part of our obligation for in-kind funds, is that?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. As the match portion,
Gotcha.
yes.
It was my understanding from what I received in emails yesterday and today that anything less, if it's less, that's all we're going to have to expend on it. So if it comes down 10,000, whatever, that's all we'll have to spend.
So we wouldn't be committed to the additional 50 or whatever it is to make up.
That's my understanding.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll follow up and make sure. Let's see, any other questions on that before? Okay, well, I was going to say make sure you go vote, but I think it might be past 8 o'clock, so. The registration just opened last Thursday for 100 Best Communities to raise youth, and that's one that we've applied for the last 2 years. And I actually received a personal email from the gentleman in Washington, D.C., inviting us to participate again. He said that we had a very strong application last year, and that would be a designation that we would receive out of all the communities in the United States. 100 are chosen to be the best place to raise youth, and they give $50,000 to the community in whatever facet. So we worked together. I know Mrs. May had to leave, but with the school district, Safe Routes to School, and there's not any contribution as far as the city is concerned with dollar amounts or anything along that line. It would just be a distinction of honor for our community. So you can see our past applications online on our website, and so we'll be working on that. And let's see, I went over the demo bids, so I think that's all I have this evening.
Okay. Jennifer?
Last week on Tuesday and Wednesday, I had the privilege of going to Boise to the Industrial Commission. They held 2 and 3 day courses, a fundamental and then a higher level course on workman's comp, and I was quite surprised at the intensity of the class. We spent 2 full days of going over state statute and the IDAPA rulings on workman's comp. So at the end we took a test, and they said it'd be 2-3 weeks to see what our grades were on it. But I did get my certificate of participation. This week, actually tomorrow afternoon, I'll be traveling to Provo to be on site with Cassell, which is our accounting software, to do some specific training for our specific payroll processes. Also was at the LEPC meeting today. They're looking for volunteers working with the air show coming up, which is on our website if you're interested in volunteering at the air show. They're looking at hydration stations and lost child booths. Tuesday, the 27th, 2 weeks from tonight, actually starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, will be our ribbon cutting ceremony, followed by open house until the 6 o'clock council meeting in the chambers here. I'd like to make sure everyone you know, tell them to come on by. You know, if they can't make the ribbons, at least they can stop in and get a quick tour and see our facilities. Not only is this room a great room, but we also have the executive chambers that I have set up on schedules. If you have group activities or meetings, community meetings, we can schedule those in and they can use the facilities during the days. So it's a great thing for our whole community, and I want to make sure everybody knows about it. So,
Jennifer, the training you're going down for, did I hear right that there was an upgrade coming soon? Is that going to take that into account, or what do you think?
This training that I'm going for on Thursday is specifically to the program that we have now. A lot of it will roll over, but the new program, which is called Clarity, we're on Classic now. The new one is Clarity, is an upgrade to it. So some of the processes will be the same. Some of them are going to be a little bit different. The Clarity, in order to go to it, you need to make the down payments, and then it's a 6-month wait from that down payment to the time that they actually install it. So we're looking at probably at least a year before we would be getting that program actually on, where we were using it. So, did that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you. Is that all for you?
I think so.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anybody here to report for Rob?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do you know of anything, Polly, that...
They are actually at a class over in eastern Idaho, and we have a couple of awards coming our way from the Idaho Rural Water Conference, so I guess I won't spoil anything and let them report on that, but that's where they are right now.
Okay. Sure. All right. We'll move on then. Chief.
I don't have a whole lot. We did get to finalize some of our stuff on our e-ticketing that we're installing. We thought we were going to have to spend $500 for computer stuff, but found out that ours is going to be capable, so we don't have to spend that $500. But Ben was in yesterday and got us all hooked up, so it's just a matter of getting online with the courts and everything and getting that all done. Other than that, that's about it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Jenny.
All right. Well, the American Smart Growth, these couple of days have been amazing, and I wish there were 30 plus hours in the day. I could really incorporate some of these great ideas right now. As it sits, Mayor Tracy had a great idea during this meeting, and I hope that we could roll out some of the ideas that we all brought up, and specifically drive-through pharmacy. I love it. On the topic of city administrator, I must speak to not just Polly, but overall the administrator's role leadership. I'm able to encompass the roles of planning and zoning director, building official, economic development officer, and a bit of code enforcement here and there. These are roles that are filled by approximately 10 persons at the city of Twin Falls, and I am a single, non-benefited, part-time employee. So when you see me rolling around town in that little car, I'm typically on my own time rolling through inspections, and I love the city so much, and the leadership is so great. I've never experienced anything else, and I would probably do this for a little bit of no money. It's a great job, and I love it a lot.
We're going to make note of that.
As soon as I win the lotto and I can afford to pay for gas to get in here on no money, free of charge. The houses in Ballard's Way, Stone Cave, and Kimberly Meadows, and Kimberly Heights are rolling along. Ballard's Way is progressing, just snap, snap, snap. I went on foundation inspections this morning, yesterday, and it seems like just about every day we've got an inspection out there. Houses are going up quickly, and the great thing I'm seeing is no for sale signs in front of them. These are houses that are having ownership before final inspection.
Pre-sold's nice.
I'm very proud of the city of Kimberly. If you don't have any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Okay.
I had a good question for you.
Yes, sir.
We're talking so much about the smart growth, and then it brought something up that I'd forgotten about. Can you give me an update on the bricks, the contract we have with them, or what's going on with that?
The BRICS partnership, we spoke with Mark Rivers and lost some communication. We were having a tough time getting a hold of him, honestly, for quite a while. And as a result of that, I sent an email separating our partnership. He was not paid any monies, and I let him know that we'd love to partner with him in the future on projects if he's got a proposal. We did run into a serious concern with the accessibility of his services and his time.
So the agreement we made to pay him $5,000, I believe, we never paid him any.
No, sir.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Tracy?
Yeah, just to let you know on Stowgate, that's still ongoing. The contractor's still putting together a proposal of how he's going to fix that asphalt. He still has been in contact with us, so I mean, it's not going away. We don't have anything concrete on that. He's looking at trying to do a mill it off, and then relay, over the whole thing again. Which, when we see his proposal, right offhand, it seems like a good way to do it. Get mill out beyond the existing cut line, and then just patch that whole thing back. But anyway, as soon as we get his proposal, then Rob and I will look at that a little closer and make sure that it's going to meet the needs on this.
So when you are referring to milling it out and then patching back over, you're not referring to using the same material he's pulling out?
No.
Okay.
No, they would mill that off, haul it off.
Got it. Okay.
Just an inch and a half mill the existing asphalt all off.
Okay.
Take that off and then repave it with new asphalt that they bring in from the plant.
Good.
In your professional opinion, do you think that some of that waviness was due to a rush to beat the weather, and maybe they just didn't? They were doing, because they were working at night. I mean, they were really working all hours just to try and make that happen before everything shut down. Could that have been part of the issue, or do you think it does speak to compaction?
I guess we're trying not to get in the middle of that. We've got the data, the test data, and it shows that the compaction was there. We're trying to keep the city out of it, the middle of it, leave it to the contractor to put it back, but we are, verifying through their test stuff. And there is quite a bit of that, just I think between the contractor and the paving contractor that they've been reviewing amongst themselves. But it appears that the compaction was good on the subgrade, is why that the mill thing should work. If we had concern in the subgrade, you probably wouldn't want to do that.
Well, I'm just thinking, laying asphalt like any trade is a skill. And if they were, if they didn't lay it down properly to begin with, I would have concerns about them doing it a second time. But if you guys are, you're confident that they'll be able to come back in and do it right the second time, then I guess there's no worries.
Yeah, it was placed, and the cores that they did show that there was asphalt there, but it just seems to have, overrolled. It probably got cold, when they were laying it, because the temperatures weren't, real conducive to asphalt.
There were other elements involved in that too. If I remember Rob explaining it, the asphalt company that they initially were going to use could no longer do it for whatever reasons, and so they had to bring the asphalt in out of town. So from Burley.
Yeah, it came from Burley.
Not only did that asphalt set in that truck that travel distance, but Rob also said that he observed them with trucks on site for a considerable amount of time before it went on the ground. And
they had some issues with the proper equipment being there. When they had asphalt, they were trying to hand rake some, but
those things are all contributing factors.
There was, it just in their rush to get it done before the weather.
That's what I was
like you're saying.
Okay.
And their original person they had lined up, it was even for a few weeks before that when there was actually more conducive weather, it would have probably would have had a lot better product.
Trixie had a question on that. We had paid for supervision for JUB during that time. Was there any kind of supervision during the laying of the asphalt from JUB?
Well, the way the contract was written was, the testing would be done by the contractor, so if you get into a situation like this, that there can't be pointing at, anybody else. It's the contractor's responsibility. But yes, we had somebody out there documenting the issues that were going on. Yes. Other than that, we're the wastewater study. We're, getting into that. I don't really have anything to report on that yet, but we will be bringing reports on that and updates to you on things that we're finding on that. And other than that, that's all I have.
That study will be done next council?
It won't be done. No.
Gotta ask. Okay, thanks, Tracy. Mr. Hopefully.
Well, I think I've been talking too much tonight, so I don't have anything except I haven't heard anything from United Pipe yet. That should be daily. I should get notification from them. I was there for a while. I've given emails from the CEO of United Pipe. I haven't heard anything for 30, 45 days. So just let the process play out. Go from there.
Perfect. Okay. Council comments? Okay. At this time, do we have a motion to move to executive session?
Okay. I move that we enter executive session pursuant to provisions of Idaho Code 67-2345, subsection 1B and subsection F.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Question, please.
Richmond,
Yes.
Sapka,
Yes.
Hoobler,
Yes.
Eisenhower.
Yes. Okay, so we will move into executive session, and any actions to be taken post-executive session, we'll come back out here to hear.
Yeah. Maybe. You think it'd be all right?
Yes, next time.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Are you good? All right.
All of a sudden I got it to work, but I don't know how.
Yes. It's down in that hall right now. Yeah, his office is right here, that door around the corner. Yeah.
So let's see how quickly we can.
All right. I was hoping you were the police station, like, I want to talk about it now.
Yeah.
See if I can get
I have a clock conference at 8 o'clock and I'll be leaving at 5. But other than that,
Yeah, that's going to be longer. We still want to do.
that first guy.
Moment.
Way too long.
Long story short, there's
I don't think we have a very done.
Come back to
And then I don't see what people really use all that anyway.
Well, it sounds like all they do is talk about it.
Yeah. Talking about Portland, Oregon or somewhere. This is just Kimberly, Idaho.
Not just.
Oh,
Can you turn that microphone off?
I will.
Hey, test it. Put it up next to your mouth and talk.
Hello.
A little closer.
Hold it like this.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
No, don't work.
There's amplifiers and stuff in the closet. And I think we're supposed to be able to hear over the speaker, and it's not turned enough. I can hear something a little bit.
I think when we had this set of course work, we'll run our time.
Most of it.
Tracy, how about turning this pulpit this way?
We got some adjustments to make. Yeah. I thought the same thing, over there or over here, so they could talk to the audience. And I don't like that thing back there either, I can't.